All right. Well, hello, everyone that's out there in the virtual world. My name is Dr. Mark Stevens. I'm trained as a clinical psychologist and a sports psychologist as well. And I'm an avid exerciser. I've been doing that most of my life. I took a little bit of break when raising three kids. I didn't make the time to exercise. I in retrospect, I think I could have done a better job of making time because my belief is that exercise and choosing to exercise is always a choice, and that we can always find time to exercise and to treat our body well. Um, and in fact, that is the title of our my talk today is Sweating with Purpose, an existential mindset about exercising, and kind of thinking about the big picture of how do we choose to exercise? What are all the different factors that go into how we make time to exercise, what kind of exercise that we do, and how do we bring it as part of who we are and identify as a person. So I was going to talk with you about a little bit about the principles of existential philosophy or existential psychology that I believe are really can add a type of understanding, a motivational factor to choosing exercise as um, a, a, a basic ingredient of our life. Much like eating and what we choose to eat or who we choose to be in relationship with or what kind of jobs that we choose or what how we spend our money, um, how we choose to exercise basically is up to us. And the tenets of existential psychology and philosophy, one of the basic tenets is everything is a choice. And oftentimes we take on more of a victim kind of mentality where we believe that we don't have choice, that if things were different, we would be able to orchestrate our life differently. But in essence, almost everything is a choice. And let me give you a couple different examples of that that might or might not ring true. I'll tell you as a teacher, I've had many students that will say, um, I forgot to turn in my homework. And then they'll come up with a bunch of sort of reasons why they forgot. And I'll say back to them, I don't think you forgot to turn in your homework. I think it was a choice. And they go, no, no, it was, I really did forget. I was so busy. I had so much going on. This happened, this happened. I just forgot about it. So I challenge them and they say, well, why do you say it's always a choice? And I said, well, let's think about this. If I were to offer you $1 million to have turned in that homework, would have you remembered? And they say, yeah, I would have remembered. I go, it's a choice. And so almost everything that we do on some level, we're prioritizing in our life. And while we say that, oh, I forgot, that's really not the case. And it's much healthier narrative to be able to say, I chose to forget. I chose not to map out time for my homework or for my exercise or to eat healthy or whatever that may be. It's always a choice. So we need to move from a victim mentality into a choice mentality. And that is part of the one of the tenets of existential psychology and philosophy, that everything is a choice. There's a book that's one of my favorite books to read, and I would recommend, is a book by Viktor Frankl on man's search for meaning. And basically his tenet is that he was a Holocaust survivor. And and he became a psychiatrist. And he has a whole theory on choice theory. And what he described while he was in the concentration camp is that in order for him to emotionally survive, he needed to find out where he had choice in his life and how he could access that choice. And so while the guards were saying, you've got to go stand in that corner, they could not stop him from what he was thinking. They could not stop him from tapping his toes to a melody. And his ability to find choice, even in the most restrictive environments, improved his mental health. So again, it's another example about the importance of seeing yourself as, I choose to do this. The other tenet of existential psychology and philosophy is the strong awareness that we are all going to die. And the tenets of existentialism is that the more that we know and keep in front of us that life is precious because it's not going to be there forever, we then move into our mindset of, how do I want to choose to live? Knowing that we only have a certain period of time, this gift of being on earth, do we want to live like a victim, or do we want to live like someone that can make a choice? We can make decisions. We can change our decisions. We can bring into our world what we want to bring in because life is so precious. If we knew that we were going to live 1,000 years, we probably wouldn't need to make these kinds of choices. We would have more time. But in fact, we're on this earth for a very short period of time. And therefore, the choices that we make and how we use our time is critically important. And the fact that we know that we will die, we ask ourselves, how do we want to live the healthiest life possible? How do we want to take in, to absorb life to its fullest? And what do we have control over that will maximize that this is possible? And this comes to exercise. Exercise is a choice. It's a choice of life. It's a choice of sustaining our life. It's a choice of sustaining our life in a way that we're going to be able to appreciate it as fully as we can. So in that way, choosing to exercise is a decision to choose to live life to its fullest. But how do people choose to live life? What's the different mindsets that people have? And I think the healthier mindset of, this is my gift to me. This is the way that I want to choose to live my life. I look at it as a vacation. Exercise is like a vacation. When we go on vacation, we want to say, we deserve this. We bring in all the wonderful parts of the vacation. We want to go and we want to travel. We want to slow down. We want to eat good foods. We want to lay down on the beach that, Jenny, you have right behind you and we want to just enjoy it because we give ourselves permission on vacations to sort of take in that precious time. But why not take in that precious time wherever we are? And in this case, it's the choice to exercise, to be able to fully absorb this vacation that's going to offer something good to our mind, body, and soul. So some of the things that I think about in terms of sweating with purpose an existential mindset about exercising is, first, how do we find the gratitude of that choice? Do we remind ourselves when we're exercising, this is my choice and it's a good choice, and I pat myself on the back for this choice because it is a life affirming kind of choice? Or do we see something as exercise, it's something to get over? Are we looking at the clock? Oh, I've got 30 more minutes to exercise. Oh, the time is moving very, very slowly. What I recommend is, do you want to do that with your life? Do you want to say, okay, when's my life going to be over? Okay, is it going to like, and sort of like you're just going to go through the motions? What if you embraced exercise as not when is it going to be over, but as much as I'm enjoying the moment of it and I don't want it to be over. I want to take it in because it's so life affirming. And in that way, exercise is a lifestyle. And my feeling about exercise from an existential standpoint is, you don't look at the results of exercise. You don't pay attention to the results of exercise. It's impossible not to look somewhere around the results. But what you pay attention to is the process of exercising, the feeling of it, how your body is alive. When you're sweating, you're alive. When you're out of breath, it means that you're working your body. And so, folks that I think have a not as healthy a relationship with exercise is they will exercise and then they'll get on the they'll get on the what's the word I'm looking for, to weigh themselves, or they 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 get on the weight
Scale.
thing, the scales, thank you. They get on the scale to say, oh, did I lose weight? Or they immediately look, did I have a faster PR? And on some level, exercise as part of life is, you don't have to measure if it's okay on a minute to minute basis to know that it's okay. And in some ways, what I'm suggesting is that you trust the process. When you choose exercise, goodness will come from that. Trust the process. It will come from that. We may not even be able to know how to measure it. Do we know if you've lived 5 years longer because you've exercised, or 10 years longer? There's no way to really know that. But what we can do is have some, to have some belief. And belief doesn't always have to be like, for certain, but belief in the process that something good is happening, even if it's not measurable. I believe that some of the ways to live in the moment while you're exercising, which is really important, and that's part of the existential tenet, is to live in the now, to absorb the present, to be with whoever you're with or whatever you're doing, not trying to see how is that going to turn out or what's the result, but just stay engaged in it. Is that some of the things that you can say to yourself with this existential mindset is, I'm loving myself. I'm taking care of myself. I'm living in the moment. I'm able to do this. I have gratitude for what I'm able to do. And might it add years to your life? The research suggests most likely yes. Does it uh, sort of protect you? Does it have protective factors from depression and anxiety? There's enough research to say yes. But we don't need to exercise and then measure that. We just know as a lifestyle, it is going to be able to bring more pleasure, more happiness, more content, and a sense of being able to be have the kind of gratitude that I am living and I'm choosing to live in a type of lifestyle that gives me the opportunity to enjoy my life as much as possible. So I'm going to stop there. I think it's probably been a good 10 minutes or so.
Agree so much with everything you said today, Dr. Stevens, because I don't know if you remember, I mentioned to you I had postpartum depression and I didn't know it. And exercise is the only thing that really got me through the whole entire process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, therapy also, but like that feeling afterwards, like I'll take on a really challenging exercise. And then afterwards, like in the middle of it, I'm like, oh, I need to stop. This is too hard. And
Yeah.
then something kicks in. It's like, no, keep going, keep going. And afterwards, it's this rewarding feeling like, oh, like you said, pat on the back, you did it, you
Yes.
got through it.
Yes. Yeah. And, of course, we do things that want some kind of rewards, but we don't always know if we're going to get them or not. And part of trusting the process is to do things that we intuitively kind of know will be good for us. And, and you got a nice result, Jazz, from it, but you've also then continued to say, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue this. One of the other things that you mentioned is about the words, I'm going to put this word out there, suffer. And existential psychology and philosophy talk a lot about suffering and the role of suffering. And on one end, how do we avoid suffering? And oftentimes we choose some unhealthy routes to avoid suffering, whether it's substance abuse or getting into bad relationships or getting addicted to something or avoiding something. We're really avoiding a kind of suffering. And so exercise allows us to have a different relationship with suffering. In fact, I kind of like suffering when I'm exercising. I kind of look forward to it. Now, I need to find that sweet spot of suffering. And some days I feel like suffering a little bit more, and some days I don't feel like suffering much of anything. And I just sort of pay attention to that and wonder, what sort of choice of suffering that I'm going to make. But I do feel alive when I'm suffering. And um, and I'm not afraid to suffer. And I think that's a good sort of life lesson, because we can't avoid suffering. And if you're going to bring on exercise as part of your life, you're going to have to learn how to suffer and to appreciate the suffering. Otherwise, you're going to have a very poor relationship with exercise. It's going to be, I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to just force myself without really wanting to.
Yeah. Mark, I agree with everything you and Jazz said. I too, I mean, I can relate and I empathize with those who have had challenges showing up for themselves. I see exercise and training, like a training session, as a way to show up for yourself when you have been in a state of self-betrayal. That's where being in the bad, let's say toxic relationships, or having bad food habits, or being in the same addicted patterns, that's constant self-betrayal. And so when one finally comes to the awareness of, hey, you know what, I do need to live my, like, I want to change, and I want to start living my life for the better. I'm going to embrace, the challenges that I've had. And something that I've been kind of like highlighting and keeping in the back of my mind is, you have to get through it. You have to go through it to get through it. And I feel like that's the same with starting any type of exercise or any suffering event, right? You got to go through it to see the light at the end of the tunnel and see what's there. And with exercising, the scientific standpoint, you're releasing those happy, good, go chemicals in your brain. That's what the end of the suffering is. And so
Mhm.
I love this topic.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love it too. I actually had a participant who was saying, I can't keep up with our Facebook lives. So then I was suggesting it doesn't, like, don't feel like you're behind. Just enjoy the process, do the correct forms, just as long as you finish the whole timing of it with correct form, just keep going. So then she felt a little better about that. But so everything that you really said today, enjoying the process is like my logo from now on.
Mhm,
I told myself I never want to fall into that depressive moment again,
mhm.
and take care of myself, do something for me. So it's
Yeah.
very, very important. I don't use scales, like you said, because I feel they can be, cause a little damage here and there.
Mhm.
So just keep going. It's all I got to say is keep
Yeah.
going.
Good. Good comments. Good. I really appreciate what you all are saying and how you're reflecting upon this. And, a lot of times there's not enough conversation about the psychology of exercise or the existential aspect of exercise. And when we have a little bit of a bigger view of just just the importance of it on so many different levels, and to be able to find ways to help people have a better relationship with exercise is just so important. Um, and it's good, excuse me, for folks to have a good relationship with whomever, whether it's your partner or with food or with work or you name it. How do you get a good relationship with these life affirming parts of our existence on this earth?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's consistent effort on your end to keep the
Mhm.
relationship, and that's the same with any type of relationship, whether it's with food, yourself, exercise. It's
Yeah.
consistent practice, and one can't get good at it unless they keep practicing it. And is practicing it for life, right? Exercise for life. You don't need to have a distance or any sort of something that is fancy, as long as you know that you are doing something for yourself to make sure that you feel better.
Dr. Stevens, this brings me to another question. So, I've been on a healthy path with exercise. I have a good relationship with exercise. So I lost my two family members to COVID earlier this year. So, I had that emotional um, wall. So for our participants who experience a loss or go through something traumatic like that, something major, is there anything you can suggest for them to kind of not quickly, but to, you know, get back on this, think about this relationship, think about taking care of themselves, putting
Yeah.
exercise back on their lives?
Well, I think a lot of people have had the experience of, going to a funeral or losing somebody, and there's two aspects of that. You grieve because you had an attachment towards that person, and a part of you've lost somewhat of a part of you that you had futurized, that you wanted to spend time with. Now their spirit is inside of you, so you never actually lose them, but you are losing something that you anticipated. And so part of death is that grieving process. The other part of death is when for remembering going to a funeral or losing something, is that you're aware that I'm alive. Because when you're in the midst of a funeral, you're grieving, but you're also alive and you're experiencing your life. And there's times at that point where you dance with, yes, I'm going to grieve, but I'm also going to embrace life a little bit more, or have a choice to embrace life. Because as you look at the casket, or you look at, or you read about somebody, you go, that could be me, that will be me. And so I think one of the gifts of death, and knowing that there's death, and the gift of grief is the gift of, how am I going to embrace my life maybe fuller than I can? And I believe that embracing life to the fullest is not a one-time decision. We're constantly thinking about, how do we want to embrace our life more fully? Sometimes on a minute-to-minute basis, sometimes on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes it's a reflection of a prayer or a certain time in one's life, whether it's a birthday or it's an anniversary or if it's a new year. So back to your question, Jazz, is about how to kind of deal with grief. One aspect is to be able to take the gift of someone's not being on this earth and to be able to say, I'm not going to take for granted my life as much as I did. And to be able to make some choices of, how am I going to live life fuller? And in some way, that's a gift to the person that we lost, to say, I'm learning something from you. I'm taking something from you and I'm going to bring it into my life. Again, that's that existential part, is that we always have a choice. And do we wake up in the morning recognizing that we have a choice how we want to live our day?
I love those words. It's, yeah, you couldn't be any more correct. That's the secret.
Mark, I think that was so beautifully well said, especially the part where you basically summed up how to move on from grief and loss. And I think that even just goes with relationships that, I mean, even though the person is still alive, but you're not together anymore, it's the same thing. You embrace what you've had together and the lessons that that person, that partner taught you, and you move forward with this new light and love that you've received from that person. Although, you know, it can feel really heavy and, you know, you don't want to move forward, it's still like there's still more to your story. And I think that's just that's the beauty of life that a lot of us tend to neglect and forget, because we don't have what we think we want. And it's not the case. We have what we want. It's just we need to be grateful for what we have already.
Yeah. Have you heard that expression, Jenny? You probably have, is that happiness is not getting what you want, but wanting what you have.
Yeah.
Have you heard that
Beautiful.
before?
I haven't heard of it, but my soul just connected to it right now when you had said that. So I feel like I've heard it maybe in another lifetime. But in this lifetime, no, I have not heard it.
It's a pretty powerful statement.
That is a powerful statement indeed. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark, for this
You're welcome.
lovely talk. We enjoyed it so much, and I'm sure the participants, when they see this, they're going to enjoy it a lot as well. And I'm sure so hoping that there is more research to connect psychology and kinesiology in the future. That way people can start to see the benefit of it, but also understand that benefits are not exercise, it's still a part of embracing our life.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you both, and take good care. And whatever, I don't know when our next meeting will be. When I think I've got it on the book sometime, but I'm not exactly
I believe
sure.
this is our last one with you.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, not maybe next semester.
Nope. This is the last one since the journey of 365 we started in July, and so
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know the both of you and the other people that have been participating in this. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
and your knowledge.
Yeah, we enjoyed
right.
every single meeting with you. One of my favorites.
Thanks, Jazz. All right.
All right.
Bye, folks.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.